there's one thing I want these Disney remakes to stop doing, it's giving me realistic CG animals. Please! For the love of God, I can't sleep anymore after Flounder kept attacking my eyes in 3D.
Hey, Flounder?
Sure. You gotta show him who's in charge.
The hell is that thing?
The Little Mermaid is the... who even cares what the number is anymore? Live-action remake from Disney. If you've seen the original, then you've already seen this one. I kid you not. It's the same shit again, and we somehow keep falling for it.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
Alright, I guess I should state what my thoughts are on the original before I tear this film a new one. I think the original is fine. I hadn't seen it when I was a kid because watching movies about princesses weren't allowed for boys because reasons. So, before seeing the remake, I finally sat down and watched it. While it isn't my favorite Disney movie or Disney princess movie, I can see and understand why it is for so many. The songs and musical numbers are full of life and energy, the animation is spectacular, and even though it's the typical love at first sight followed immediately by marriage story, it's done well enough that I don't mind it because the romance is done well. While I personally don't think it's incredible, I do think it is good and I enjoyed my time with it. The remake, not so much. Look, I know these remakes get a lot of love from Disney fans and a lot of general audience members, but the fact that Disney has gotten to the point where they can give you the same script and movie, but worse, and people will eat it up, is honestly insulting. These remakes should strive to want to improve on the original and add something new to it without fear of being ostracized by the fans of the original. But, because the Disney brand is too strong, these remakes have to be the exact same because Disney is too scared that something original won't make them $1 billion. Okay, I think I'm being a bit too harsh out of the gate. Let's try to find some positives here. I think, of all the live-action remakes they've done, this is probably the best cast one, because everyone here actually seems like they want to be here. You look at films like Aladdin, most of them just had no direction on what to do. The Lion King, they had to read the same lines word for word, so they couldn't even put their own spin on them, and Beauty and the Beast was... there. But here, everyone from Halle Bailey as Ariel to Melissa McCarthy as Ursula does a fantastic job and make it worth watching on their own. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the way they changed Ariel and Eric's bonding and how it forms into their relationship. While this remake does some stupid shit to girl boss Ariel to make her not seem like all she cares about is love, even though Ariel in the original is a very well written character and should be criticized for going after the person she loves, I do think the changes they made to how she and Eric fall in love works well here. Halle and Jonah have great chemistry with each other and the romance was honestly cute to watch. But aside from the performances and updates to the romance, it's just the same damn movie but done worse. This film was directed by Rob Marshall, a director that I have very mixed opinions on. He made Chicago, a film I haven't seen yet, but from the success of that he eventually got to make Into the Woods for Disney. There, his shortcomings as a musical director aren't as prevalent because of the nature of the musical itself. It's not a big show-stopping musical with big elaborate dance numbers. It's very character-driven and focused more on their internal struggles, so you don't focus on the lack of bombastic musical numbers like you would with other films. But then, when you look at the work he did on Mary Poppins Returns, you get a confusing mess. That movie's problems aside, the musical numbers can range from good to just completely forgettable. Sometimes he'll film them with bombastic dancing, and other times it'll just be people standing and singing. Can you guess which route was taken with this movie? And that's not to say he's a bad director. I don't think he is. He can get really good performances from his actors, and at times do one or two interesting visuals with his musical numbers. I just don't think he was right for this project. Hell, almost all the directors of these remakes, particularly the musicals, aren't right for the job. These remakes call for filmmakers that not only love the original, but want to see it improved upon, and they always pick directors that either don't really care about the source material, or are just really bad at making musicals. Every remake that's a musical is dominated by numbers that are just people lazily standing around and singing with no interesting visuals to speak of. Not every song in every musical has to have a bombastic number, because that wouldn't make sense if they did. But if all the numbers are just standing and singing, then we kind of have a problem. You look at the Lion King remake, the style of the animation does not match the genre of the movie. These songs demand strong visuals and dance numbers, and everyone is just lifeless animals singing with no good visuals to speak of. Or, you look at Aladdin, and the only good song is Friend Like Me because there's actual life to the number. Here, aside from Part of Your World, most of the songs are so visually boring and uninteresting that I forget what even happens in most of them. While the songs, for the most part,
remember the swamp, remember my song in the swamp when I was like, wham, chicka, wham, wham, chicka, wham,
are performed very well, The visuals are saying nothing of interest or note that demands me to remember why the original revolutionized animation and saved Disney as a company. If I had never seen the original and heard all the insanely positive stuff about it and went to see this, I'd wonder why the original is as beloved as it is. What I'm trying to get at is, when High School Musical 3 has more visually interesting musical numbers than your $200 million remake based on a classic, you might need to go back to the drawing board. A strange thing about this movie is how it's almost an hour longer than the original, and nothing of note is added to justify the length increase. Aside from how Ariel and Eric bond, any additions are so minor that it basically equates to adding more lines to scenes. There's no new plot lines being added. Characters like Ariel's sisters aren't given any more depth or anything to do. Ursula has just about the exact same number of scenes as she did in the original. We don't really have any understanding as to why Eric's mom doesn't like mer people. It's all just fluff to pad out the runtime to make people think this has new stuff to justify its existence, when, in fact, it adds nothing. One thing that's become apparent with these remakes, particularly ones like this, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Mulan, is they're trying to fix problems that weren't really there to begin with. Beauty and the Beast has been criticized for being a story about Stockholm Syndrome, and the way the film course corrects it is the witch makes the entire town forget about the castle and their loved ones inside, and if Belle doesn't fall in love with the Beast by the last petal falling, the objects in the house become the objects. They don't stay animate. They literally just become a clock, candlestick, etc. How do you fix the Stockholm Syndrome problem when you literally make it a bigger problem? Aladdin has Jasmine becoming more of a leader, and they give her this big song about not being speechless and having her voice taken away, only for shortly after that exact thing to happen. Mulan at least has her exposing herself by her own free will, rather than it being randomly discovered. So, good on you, movie. That's 1 point to you, even though I don't remember anything else you did. Here, they weirdly seem ashamed that Ariel was so forthgoing in pursuing her love, so they tried to course correct it while also still having the love story at the center. I get the criticism of it's not the best kind of story for kids to grow up with, but the way they try to fix it strangely takes away a lot of her agency. While I like the bigger emphasis on her wanting to explore the human world while also pursuing her love, when Ursula takes away her voice, she also adds in a spell that makes her forget she needs to kiss him. So, not only are you taking away her agency, you also make the 3 days rule pretty goddamn pointless. If she can't remember the kiss, why not just take away her voice right then and there? I feel like your plan to rule would have gone over far quicker if you just did that. Changes like that to these remakes just make it worse, but it strangely makes you appreciate the original that much more. I don't think that was their intention, but at least something positive is coming out of these movies. I know there's going to be a lot of people that will say something like, stop being so hard on it, it's just a kid's movie. And that's the kind of shit that really pisses me off. To say that a movie intended for kids means it's lesser than ones aimed more at adults is insulting to the intelligence of children. Imagine if Pixar had this mentality with making their movies. Toy Story could have been the easiest and laziest cash grab for them, but every time they make one, they always put in a ton of effort to not only make the story entertaining to kids, but have added layers of depth that kids can see and understand. Something that treats them like they have intelligence. Not every Pixar movie will be insane in its depth, but they're constantly trying and seeing how they can make an entertaining story while making sure kids are engaged with its themes and deeper messages. You know who's the studio that follows the mentality of, it's just a kids movie, we don't need to put in effort? Illumination. For years, Illumination has made billions of dollars off of making just shallow and lazy films for kids, not because they want to challenge them, but because it's easy money. You look at the first Despicable Me, while it's not the deepest of films, there is a heartwarming story about fatherhood and becoming a better person at its center. Plus, there's actual smart and intelligent humor. But as each subsequent film came out, they got lazier and lazier, and when you look at the Mario movie, that's probably their ultimate crown of laziness. They barely put in any effort into making a compelling or interesting story. The character work is lazy to non-existent, and the jokes about 80% of the time either don't work, the timing's off, or they're confused as to what's supposed to be funny. I know this is a video about the Little Mermaid and I'm going off on a tangent about Illumination, but the more that studios like Disney show they can be lazy and put in no effort and make a ton of money, other studios will follow suit. I'm not asking for every movie for kids to be Inside Out or Soul. I'm just asking that they treat their audience with intelligence, because treating them like they have none is a flat-out insult. The Little Mermaid remake is another shining example of why these remakes need to stop. While this boasts great performances, Halle really does steal the show, everything else just feels soulless. It never feels like the writers and director had an urge and passion to tell this story. It just feels like they did it for a paycheck and nothing more. I'm not against the idea of remaking these movies, but they have to put in some kind of effort and passion into them. Rehashing the exact same film is only going to make people forget your version even exists. Even though The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin all made over $1 billion, there is no one that would choose to watch those versions over the originals or even remembers anything about them. Look, if you like this movie, then more power to you. I just want Disney to start putting some effort into these remakes because I'm starting to lose my mind a bit at them. Or maybe that's just from seeing the demon fish come at me. It could be either or. I'm going to give the Little Mermaid remake a 5 out of 10.